Tasked to oversee the governance of the shared community amenities is defined in the trust agreement for GRF. Together, 38 directors represent GRF and the mutual's boards of directors. All four organizations are defined as a common interest development, CID, known as a homeowners association, and were incorporated under California nonprofit mutual interest laws. These communities must govern and operate in accordance with their governing documents, including but not limited to the Articles of Incorporation, covenants, conditions and restrictions, CCRs, bylaws, operating rules, election rules, architectural standards, condominium plans, and other documents as appropriate. The state of California, and in some circumstances federal law, has actually defined approximately 1,200 different laws that mandate how boards of directors must govern their HOAs. The principal body of law that oversees HOAs is the Davis-Sterling Common Interest Development Act, housing numerous civil codes. However, there are other aspects of law that extend to HOAs, including but not limited to other civil codes, corporation codes, health and safety codes, vehicle codes, fair housing laws, the Americans with Disability Act, various personnel laws for employees, OSHA standards, codes of civil procedure, case law, parliamentary procedures, IRS, franchise tax board. This is a complex area. Lots of people looking at this. PCM, Professional Community Management, has been acting contractually as the managing agent and oversees the operation of recreation activities and maintenance services to the community, manages the corporate fiscal affairs, facilitates employment of all personnel, procures materials and equipment, and administers all association service contracts. The managing agent contracts have been in place with each of the mutual corporations as well as the Golden Ring Foundation since 1973. It's a long time. In 2011, directors expressed concerns about the lack of responsiveness by PCM, the perceived quality of services offered, the perceived lack of communications to directors, and the perceived absence of supervision of PCM employees. During this time, conversations about the roles of governance and management, as demonstrated in the relationship between PCM, the mutuals, and GRF, came into question. Laguna Woods Village contacted FutureSense in 2011 as a potential third-party, outside, independent, and objective consultant to assist in an organizational design project to assess the governance structure, review organizational accountabilities and performance standards, to assure all boards that Laguna Woods Village is meeting or exceeding the needs of its residents. FutureSense submitted a proposal at that time, but a formal engagement was not commenced. In 2014, a study was commissioned to review what's working and what's not with the organizational structure and business model for the community. The study was conducted in coordination with Associa, the parent company of PCM, who utilized Alvarez and Marcel as their business consultant. Some Laguna Woods Village directors expressed concern that this review, while purportedly comprehensive, may not have been totally objective because of the non-arm's length business relationship between Associa and A&M. In February of 2015, FutureSense was contacted again, submitted a proposal again, and was retained as a third-party, independent, and neutral consultant to provide an organizational assessment. Again, our purview included reviewing governance structures, organization design, the business model, strategies, and goals to assess if Laguna Woods Village could endure into the future to meet the needs of residents while remaining affordable. The proposal was divided into three sections. Phase 1, discover, review the past, and define the current state. In this phase, we extensively reviewed past reports, met individually with board members, and tried to understand what has happened that has caused you to be where you are today. We sought to understand the current situation and the reactions of board members towards it. We detail the discovery phase today in the report that we're presenting. Phase 2, as we proposed it, would be the design phase, and this is about defining the future state, where in this phase, which we cannot bid on until phase 1 is completed, which it now has been, we will complete the design of a new governance structure, organization, business model that's acceptable to a majority of the board members. Through a series of interactive steps and inherently through some compromise, we would negotiate an effective solution for the 4 boards of Laguna Woods Village. Phase 3 would be the delivery phase, implementing the new organization and managing the change process. In this final phase, which we could not bid on until phase 1 and phase 2 are completed, we would work with the 4 boards to help implement a new organization if appropriate. This would include change management, process management, and communications. So today, we're covering the findings from phase 1 only, our discovery phase. From February 2015 to April 2015, we conducted a discovery process that included the following steps. A document review. The Golden Rain Foundation members, GRF, provided the team with an incredible amount of documents in paper, book, and electronic format. Some of these documents included previous reports, inquiries, business plans, etc., ranging back to the early 2000s. Over a period of 2 weeks, we also conducted 59 30-minute interviews with various directors, PCM staff, and leaders to gain a clearer understanding of the lay of the land on the governance and operational state of Laguna Woods Village leadership. A short electronic questionnaire was sent out to all directors of the boards. The survey consisted of both quantitative and qualitative questions identifying the state of governance and leadership at Laguna Woods Village. Of the group of 38 directors, we received 23 responses, which is a 61% response rate. And then finally, we held a town hall, Resident Voice, on March 19th. It was a town hall meeting hosted by Resident Voice that many residents chose to attend and were given the opportunities to share their opinions on the current state of Laguna Woods Village with the FutureSense team. And we facilitated that meeting. So the timing that you see here is we presented and are presenting the findings to the boards. We're presenting this in a public session in the afternoon, and this is where we stand on the project. So let's get into the findings. Our findings from the discovery process have been categorized in the following quadrants: alignment, culture, accountability, and governance. I'm going to first talk about alignment. Our discovery process taught us that in 1962, Ross Cortese, who developed the second leisure world community, now Laguna Woods Village, said his goal in building the community was, quote, to supply the basic needs of life for people aged 52 and older, create a serene atmosphere of beauty, and provide security, recreation, and religious facilities, then leave the living to the individual, end quote. Clearly, Laguna Woods Village has progressed far beyond his simplistic but elegant vision, as we will discuss shortly. There are two components to alignment for Laguna Woods Village: ensuring all members of the organization's leadership are cohesively motivated for success, and ensuring team members are moving in the same direction. One of the most obvious findings in the discovery process is that the governance team and the management team in Laguna Woods Village are passionately dedicated to the goal of making it a great community in which to live. Each and every individual the FutureSense team interacted with demonstrated a desire to see the community attain and retain success. Without this foundation, making any organizational changes would not be possible. While it is clear that the directors have a high level of motivation, our discovery did, however, uncover the absence of a clear, unifying direction. There's a saying by Anton Chekhov that says, if you tell a monk and a revolutionary to move forward, they will move in precisely the opposite direction. In some ways, this is the phenomenon we witnessed during our time on site and in reviewing the documents provided to us. In our discovery process, we were unable to identify a clear, unifying statement or mission regarding the ultimate goals for Laguna Woods Village currently and for the future. In order to best identify the governance model best suited for Laguna Woods Village, the FutureSense team knows it is critical to understand the direction Laguna Woods Village is heading. In order to identify the means, that is the governance and the business model, it is imperative to understand the ends, the ultimate goal and vision for Laguna Woods Village. While FutureSense did review the documents provided and did a series of 59 interviews with both Laguna Woods Village directors and PCM staff, we were unable to pinpoint a clear answer as to what the vision or mission for Laguna Woods Village really is. The closest we came to locating a statement of vision is what appears to be the original marketing vision. This was only referenced once in an interview. It is believed to be, quote, to develop a community that was affordable by medium-income citizens that offered them active, participative lifestyle, end quote. While this may or may not be the current vision statement, we could not validate nor invalidate that during the discovery process, It appears to be one-dimensional in terms of defining what was more than likely a much more homogeneous group of residents when the community was established nearly 50 years ago. This one-dimensional vision appears to assume that the needs of most residents would be the same across much of the community. During our inquiry, it became clear that despite being a 55 and older community, which many would assume is a relatively homogeneous group, there are various subgroups and or generations within the gates of Laguna Woods Village with quite varied needs and financial circumstances. Our findings identified these generations to include, but not be limited to, the following. Group 1, recently retired or still actively working, frequent and active users of community amenities, pools, golf courses, etc., financially stable or actively employed. Group 2, slightly older segment of the population, somewhat frequent users of community amenities, and may be starting to feel a financial stress on a fixed income. For example, the increased cost of living, assessments, etc., has started to put pressure on their monthly income. And then group 3 is a more senior population within the Laguna Woods Village community. Many, if not most of these residents have been on a small fixed income for quite some time, years perhaps, and feel burdened or strained by the continual increase of the cost of living, particularly in terms of increasing assessment levels. This group is typically not frequent users of Laguna Woods Village facilities. It was also clear that those who have been elected to the boards, as well as PCM staff, see the various challenges and demands placed on these groups. Some indicators are the following. Some directors are concerned about maintaining the community to compete with other local resort-type communities. Some directors are concerned about the priority of the boards in keeping the assessments low to remain affordable to residents. Some directors are concerned about the shared cost model and the burden it's putting on the more senior of residents who cannot and do not use many of the services. So under the Davis-Sterling Act, there are 4 types of common interest developments, aka homeowners associations, are identified. Within Laguna Woods Village, there are cooperatives, community apartments, condominiums, and also a trust agreement. Because of these classifications, each association has their own set of governing documents and budgets. The complexity of finding a shared vision and mission is compounded by this fact. Yet each of these unique organizations is part of the greater community of Laguna Woods Village. Each of the 4 boards, the mutuals and GRF, appear to be moving in slightly, or in some cases not so slightly, different directions. Yet they are all part of a greater community. When mapping it out visually, which you can see on the slide, you can see layers of complexity involved in identifying how each unique mutual has residents in each of the subcategories, and those are only 3 that we've identified. There are probably even more. The picture that emerges is not one of a homogeneous group, but is one of complexity and diversity with different needs and demands. This compounded complexity may make it increasingly difficult for one unified mission or vision to be established for Laguna Woods Village. Evidence of these diverse groups and their needs emerged throughout the discovery process during interviews when each director seemed to have a different vision or idea as to the role of the boards and the direction required for a cohesive community. So let me address just briefly the electronic survey because we're going to interject in our conversation this afternoon results from the survey. Let me just tell you a little bit about the survey so you have a framework. As part of the discovery process, the FutureSense team sent the 38 directors an electronic survey that included both qualitative and quantitative questions to assess governance at Laguna Woods Village. The survey remained open from Monday, March 16th through Thursday, March 19th. 23 of the 38 directors participated in the survey. The qualitative questions were assessed on a 5-point scale, with 5 being the highest score. Any answers that were unsure were assigned a value of 0. So we present survey results throughout the balance of the report. To validate this issue of alignment, we asked the question, I have a clear understanding of the long-term vision for Laguna Woods Village. With 23 responses, the average score was 2.9, right down the middle. 1 to 5, 2.9, right down the middle. Looking at the inconsistent distribution, we see a clear polarity in the directors that either feel that the group does or does not have an understanding of the long-term vision for Laguna Woods Village. Based on our experience, 39% of reporting directors feeling negatively about a clear understanding of the long-term vision of Laguna Woods Village is high for this type of governance. During the discovery process, a clear and apparent lack of unity was identified not only with the directors, but also with on-site PCM staff. During the interviews, we heard PCM staff indicate different expectations and views as to what Laguna Woods Village needs to do to be successful in the future. These staff expectations were a little less resident-centric and focused mainly on the balance between affordability for mid-income level seniors while maintaining property values and competing with resort-type communities. Let's address the next block, which is culture. Liz Ryan of Bloomberg Businessweek published an article in 2010 documenting the signs that an organization has succumbed to a culture of fear. The symptoms they outlined include appearances are everything, everyone is talking about who's rising and who's falling, distrust reigns, numbers rule, rules are in the thousands, management considers lateral communication suspect, information is hoarded, brown nosers rule, The Office, if you remember the show, The Office, evokes sad chuckles rather than laughs, and management leads by fear. Many of these symptoms of a culture of fear and distrust clearly emerged throughout the discovery process at Laguna Woods Village. Here are a few examples. From the campaigning process to political clubs and from slanderous websites dating back 5+ years to the highly charged disagreements on the televised meetings, there's an intense focus on posturing and politicking instead of problem-solving and solution-oriented discussions. In the interview process, statements like, they are in control, we have lost power, those people were placed strategically, etc., indicate a focus on the rising and falling of groups in power. In addition, any meetings, conversations, etc., amongst groups are often seen as highly suspect. A significant challenge both the boards and PCM face is a pervasive sense of mutual distrust. Much of this appears to have started 10 years ago when questions arose about the fiscal responsibility of PCM staff in administering the board-approved budgets. The reaction by the boards and GRF to initial requests for details regarding financial spending in question was that PCM was not forthcoming. This then raised further suspicions of inappropriate financial management and excessive and/or unsuitable spending habits. While distrust is a general theme in the relationship, many did note, however, in their interviews that PCM has been operating in a much more transparent manner in the last year. Overall, the director's perception is that PCM is not forthcoming in providing access to accurate information about staff salaries and proper fiscal performance. Many of the directors perceive PCM as not being held accountable for organizational performance in terms of service, quality of work products, financial management, etc. Due to the significant portion of funds allocated to staff compensation and benefits, this fear of financial uncertainty and mismanagement of resources occupies a significant part of the discussions about compensation structures. Many directors noted poor performance and inadequate leadership of PCM staff from the top down. Directors also reported a heightened sense of distrust of PCM and that they perceive that their financial resources are being wasted on overly high salaries for mediocre service. Directors are concerned about both the apparent lack of performance measures and perceived high pay scales of PCM leadership and staff. Directors perceive access to their corporate financial records being withheld, but during our discovery, we were unable to determine if, in fact, PCM actually has supporting documentation and/or studies of competitive and reasonable salary and total compensation programs that are A, readily available, B, up to date, and C, with clearly defined and measurable staff performance standards, goals, and assessment processes. Laguna Woods Village Mutuals and GRF have a contract with PCM as their managing agent. At any time, they could renegotiate the contract or determine to seek another managing agent, which lends some built-in fear in the nature of the relationship between the two entities. In light of the conversations the boards have been having and the nature of the discovery by FutureSense, there is a confirmed sense of fear by PCM regarding the potential loss of their contracts. However, it also appears to be driving PCM towards proactive efforts to improve the relationship and levels of service. PCM has articulated that they are very committed to continuing their work with Laguna Woods Village and does admit that there's room for improvement in some areas. Because of several levels of service that need improvement and this pervasive culture of mistrust and fear, significant micromanagement by the directors has occurred. As a result of the micromanagement stemming from directors' frustrations and distrust, staff is being burdened by spending countless hours querying information, creating reports, and responding to the demands of directors who are technically making management, not governance, decisions. This is in addition to their, PCM's, existing job duties and responsibilities. The process of going out to bid for construction or maintenance projects by PCM was brought up repeatedly through the interview process. Directors were not satisfied with the bids received. In many cases, they felt bids seemed high, or only one bid was presented as opposed to multiple ones. Or certain documents provided to the boards had been redacted from the original format. Because the directors have a heightened sense of distrust, they frequently ask for more information, spend more time inquiring about the RFP contracting process, thereby creating additional stress and excessive workload for the PCM staff. This cycle appears to be causing a tremendous amount of redundant work and staff burnout. Even the directors, who are frequently spending in excess of 30+ hours a week in their volunteer roles, are complaining of burnout culture. Let's talk about accountability. During the discovery process, it became clear that there are some polarizations or pendulum swings that have occurred throughout the history of leading and governing Laguna Woods Village. There have been boards that have been highly engaged and proactive in governance and sometimes management, and others that have let PCM hold the reins and make decisions that incorporate both governance and management responsibilities. While the pendulum has swung both ways, there's very little evidence that clarity of role for both staff and directors with clear accountabilities, metrics, and scorecards exist. So let me address first the issue of accountability to understand resident needs. The current model of governance is that the resident shareholders elect the boards who then appoint GRF directors. The model asserts that all directors are to be representing and advocating on behalf of all resident shareholders. By governance definitions, the board members should be held accountable to advocating and representing their respective resident shareholders in each of the mutuals, and in turn GRF. On multiple occasions, the FutureSense team inquired as to how were directors aware of the needs of the residents of Laguna Woods Village. While most directors indicated they were elected or desired to be a director because they wanted to be an effective voice for residents, many could not clearly articulate how they factually understood the needs of residents they were elected to represent. In most cases, directors noted that residents told them what they did or did not want. When asked if a survey or other process had been conducted to identify resident needs, the FutureSense team did not receive a clear response. Most indicated that a needs assessment had not been distributed in quite some time, meaning directors seem to be relying on self-reporting as the mechanism for identifying resident needs and or wants. The challenge with this approach is that in multiple interviews, directors speculated that they felt that close to half of the residents, in some cases more, in Laguna Woods Village were disengaged from the politics and or governance of the community. This group may or may not participate in board elections and is minimally interested in the operations and governance of Laguna Woods Village. With nearly 18,000 residents and only 38 directors, the ability to uncover or inquire about the needs of the diverse resident population would be a daunting task for all directors to manage successfully. In order to validate the concern about directors understanding the needs of the residents, the FutureSense team asked the following question with the following results. The boards are doing the best work possible to meet the needs of Laguna Woods Village residents. Again, the average score right down the middle, 3.0. As with the previous question, the responses were inconsistent and utilized a wide range of answers, indicating that directors are not in clear alignment on whether or not the needs of residents are being met. only about 1/2 of the directors felt that the boards were doing the best work possible to meet the needs of Laguna Woods Village residents. So let's address the issue of the accountability of residents needing to understand directors' roles. Beyond understanding the needs of the residents, the FutureSense team inquired about the residents having a clear understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the directors. Throughout the discovery process, evidence of a lack of training and understanding about boards' roles and responsibilities emerged. In interviews, the directors gave frequent examples of residents asking board members to handle management-type issues that are outside the scope or purview of directors' responsibilities. Many directors and PCM staff gave examples of residents believing that the board's responsibilities and roles were to manage and not govern. Some of the examples of this include handling maintenance and painting requests, residents requesting operational exceptions of established rules, and discussions on getting specific plants or projects started by the landscapers. These behaviors appear in part due to the unrealistic expectations of the residents and the pressure that they're putting on directors. With unrealistic understanding and expectation of the board's roles, residents unintentionally push the directors into more management-type behaviors instead of letting them think or act in a governing role. Due to the political environment, board members appear likely to engage in management requests to keep their constituents happy instead of focusing their efforts and energies on leadership and governance. The cycle can be depicted in the following way that you see up on the slide. The resident pushes the need to the board, the directors intervene in management manners, board members navigate it to PCM, and then PCM responds. This cycle is forcing the directors into the role of management, not governance. Additional steps and complications are added when board members intervene in the management response process. Clearly, the lines between management and governance have become blurred. In effect, the process should be much simpler, involving only PCM implementing policies and procedures for residents. And you can see in this particular chart, boards establish policies and rules through governance, and then residents push the needs to the proper PCM channel, and PCM responds. That's not the way it's working. In addition to the board meeting the needs of the residents, the theme of residents having a clear understanding of the roles and the responsibilities of the directors was explored in the discovery process. Since mutual directors are elected, they have a responsibility to serve their constituents by providing fiduciary oversight. Interviews indicated again that directors feel many of the constituents did not have a clear understanding of the board roles and therefore frequently had unrealistic expectations or placed unrealistic expectations on the directors they elected. The electronic survey asked directors, the residents of the community have a clear understanding of the role of the directors. The results here were overwhelmingly negative in response to this question. The average score was 2.1, and the distribution indicates a majority sense that the directors feel the residents do not have a clear understanding of director roles. In addition, directors were asked the question, the residents of the community have a clear understanding of the responsibility of the boards. Again, the average score was a 2.3, and the score was overwhelmingly negative to neutral. Both sets of responses indicate a clear alignment around the perception that directors feel residents do not have a clear understanding. This was further seen in the town hall meeting that we facilitated on March 19th, when residents gave examples of how they saw the responsibility of the boards to get their management projects finished for them, i.e. plumbing, maintenance, etc. Several participants in the meeting even tried to correct those members in attendance, indicating that the responsibility of the board was to set policies. Let's address board accountability to one another. The key opportunity for residents to determine accountability for board performance is during the election process. Currently, directors typically serve in accordance with their respective association bylaws in 3-year terms, 6-year limits, and a democratic election process that ideally rewards good performance, re-election, and removes ineffective ones from office. They're not re-elected. In reality, the discovery process indicated that the entire election and recall process is so politically charged that the electoral recall system of checks and balances is less about performance and more about the political climate and numbers. Let me repeat that. In reality, the discovery process indicated that the entire election and recall process is so politically charged that the electoral recall system of checks and balances is less about performance and more about the political climate and numbers. We have seen no evidence of basic practices about scorecards, measures of success, that the boards can and should communicate to their constituents. The electronic survey validated this assessment. When it comes to self-reflection on governance, board directors were asked, I believe boards of the mutuals and GRF are working together to govern well. The average score for this was 2.9, and the answers were split close to half feeling positive and half feeling negative or neutral about board performance. At the governance level, boards should be more strongly aligned around and about the quality of board performance. The closest thing we found to a standard was the repeated mention of assessment levels as a metric for board success. During interviews in the survey, many directors noted that they felt successful in their role because assessments did not go up or went up minimally during their term. This may not be an appropriate, fair, or accurate measure of performance and success, given the external factors that could occur during their term. For example, decisions about routine maintenance or property development may be set in motion 5 to 10 years before current directors are elected to their terms. The long-term consequences of these decisions do not emerge until new directors are in place and then assume the blame for higher assessments to correct decisions that were previously made. For a director to be accountable, truly accountable for organizational performance, keeping assessments at a static or lower level may not be the best business decision for the resident. This is documented in the Davis-Sterling Act as noted. So we understand that an association and its directors are required to levy assessments, regular and special, sufficient to perform its obligations under the governing documents. They also impose usage and service fees separate from regular and other types of assessments, as long as they do not conflict with the governing documents. However, an association may not impose or collect assessments or a fee that exceeds the amount necessary to defray the cost for which it's imposed. Further, we understand that the standard to which boards of directors of a homeowners association are held under California law in making business decisions for discretionary management decisions is known as the business judgment rule. Boards choosing to ignore or not perform to this standard run the risk of personal liability if they do not meet these standards. Let's talk about accountability for performance and performance management. During our discovery, we were not able to locate any performance measures, metrics, or scorecards available for the boards to assess the quality of the work of the managing agent or the general manager. Speculation about the quality of performance from our discovery process made it clear there are differences in perception as to how well PCM is doing. The lack of accountability and established benchmarks for success shows up both in PCM leadership and staff. From a leadership point of view, one of the most critical tenets of governance is to identify the metrics and measures for assessing leadership performance of a managing entity. In the case of PCM, GRF, and the mutuals, our discovery indicated that there appeared to be no established metrics and measures to assess the performance of PCM leadership and how they're managing Laguna Woods Village operations. We do understand, however, that a committee has been tasked or is to be tasked in the very near future to investigate this and establish some metrics and measures. It should be noted that the established metrics and measures used to assess PCM leadership should be directly correlated and aligned with the long-term goals of Laguna Woods Village. Staff. The feelings on staff performance are mixed among the directors. Some directors are thrilled with the level of service, and others feel it could be much better. No matter which perspective was voiced, almost all agreed that the level of service and openness from PCM staff has been improving recently. The chart that you see up here is an example of what a scorecard could look like, though it's balanced, centered to the vision and strategy, with financial measures, customer measures, in this particular case, internal business process measures, and in innovation and learning, which may not be necessarily relevant to your community, but clearly it shows you how you tie the components and measures of success to your overall vision and strategy. This is absent here. We don't know what we're driving for and how we're going to get there. So the final area, excuse me, the final area in discovery is governance. One of the key findings is that there's minimal alignment between the existing governance activities, that is, how business decisions are made and implemented, compared to the business objectives, goals, and operational guidelines for each of the mutuals and GRF. In fact, our findings indicate the existing model appears to be fractured, or at a minimum may not be meeting the requirements of the association's governing documents. For example, the GRF and the mutuals are required to govern and make business decisions following standards that are defined in civil codes, statutes, and laws. Their HOA governing documents using the business judgment rule. During our interview process and survey finding with directors, there was minimal mention and an apparent absence of understanding of directors' fiduciary duties and adherence to the Laguna Woods Village governing documents. Mentioned during our interview process was that even though the intentions of most directors were good, multiple governance inefficiencies are present, ranging from lack of policy structure to ignoring existing policies and procedures when making business decisions. Some examples of this include redundancies in spending, overspending, poor to no existing operating standards or lack of adherence to them, little to no direction from the board to staff, directors are out of touch with resident needs, poor communications between directors, boards interfering with existing operational management procedures when requesting favoritism for an individual owner who asked for such, no collaboration between the boards and committees, too many meetings, resistance to change, and a significant crossover of directors managing operations versus governing by policy. What Laguna Woods Village should be seeing are well-defined written policies, goals, and resulting actions that would provide needed structure and create greater transparency and accountability for directors and for residents that is truly representative of their needs. So in conclusion, Peter Drucker, a well-known management guru, has been cited as the world's foremost pioneer of management theory, and he cites that leadership is taking responsibility for results. As volunteers, time must be spent efficiently and effectively. Decisions must be for the good of the entire community and not for the benefit of any one director. The fiduciary standard applied to directors of HOAs is clear and has been consistently sustained over and over again in the court system. You are, as directors, the helmsman for the association, and it is your duty to steer it. This is spoken to the directors. Steering requires establishing vision and goals and inspiring and motivating followers to attain desired results. Again, to the directors, your role as directors is to create goals and objectives for the community. Your value comes in helping management, staff, and others test whether implementing the strategy is grounded in reality. The authority of the board of directors is not as individuals, but is vested as a group authority to govern and lead the organization. The only way the board can speak as the board then is by bringing diverse points of view to one point or one voice. This one voice principle does not mean that there should be unanimity or lack of diversity on the boards. On the contrary, on behalf of the members and residents of Laguna Woods Village, the board must embrace all of the diversity and the growing diversity that we're seeing in the community it can, and then reach out to obtain more. Differences among directors are not only to be respected but encouraged. Rarely will a vote be unanimous. Those directors who lost the vote, however, must accept that the board has spoken and that its decision must be implemented as decided. So our commentary back to the board was, as the governing body for the association, your primary focus is to create policy. You define what member resident needs are to be met, for whom, and at what cost. Written with an eye towards long-term strategy, mission-related policies, vision-related policies, embody and embrace the board's long-term perspective. By aligning your visions, creating a culture of collaboration, not a culture of fear and distrust, holding all stakeholders, residents, boards, and managing agent accountable for results, and through excellence in governance, you can fulfill your primary responsibilities. So that was our discovery, and that ends our presentation for today.
Thank you very much, Jim. And at this point, our commitment really was to have FutureSense present their findings to the community. We're not going to have a question and answer session. The next issue that the next step will be for GRF and the Housing Mutual Boards. Over the next couple weeks, we'll meet to determine the next step that we need to take in order to address a lot of the issues that have been presented to us. And one of the first ones is to see if we can't get alignment. Because if we can't get all the boards to be focusing, trying to go the same way, we're never going to get to where we want to be. And so that's really the commitment that we have of all the board members so far after discussions a bit this morning. We're going to really work hard to make sure that we're all beginning to see and identify where do we want to be so that we have an enduring community going forward, and one that not only fulfills Cortese's requirements when he started 50 years ago, but really the desires of this community as to where we want to be. And so with that, the meeting is going to be adjourned. As everybody knows, this has been televised, so the community at